Welcome, weary wanderers, to the realm of Eldara, where the moon whispers secrets to the stars, and the sun's embrace soothes the land. Let the soft melody of the night cradle you as we embark on a journey into a world of magic and mystery. In this land of enchantment, where magic once flowed like the rivers that crossed the meadows, a shadow now lingers, stealing away the very essence of Eldara. But fear not, for in the heart of this darkness stands Sir Cedric, the realm's last noble knight, his spirit ablaze with unwavering courage. Join us atop the highest tower of Castle Eldwin, where Sir Cedric's gaze pierces the horizon, searching for answers amidst the fading aurora. Feel the warmth of his resolve, a beacon of hope amidst the encroaching night, as he vows to protect his realm and restore its lost magic. With the dawn's gentle embrace, Sir Cedric sets forth on a quest to defy the darkness, his loyal companions by his side. Through fields of golden wheat and ancient groves, they journey, their spirits alight with determination. So close your eyes, dear travelers, and let the tale of the last night guide you into a peaceful slumber. In the warmth of Sir Cedric's courage, may you find solace and sanctuary as dreams weave their magic around you, carrying you to realms unknown. Chapter 1: The Dwindling Light. In the realm of Eldara, where the moon sang lullabies to the stars and the sun caressed the blooming daisies, magic once flowed like the great silvery rivers that crossed the meadows and mountains. But as the last glimmers of an aurora faded from the midnight sky, a solemn shadow crept over the land, heralding the vanishing of magic. Sir Cedric, the realm's last noble knight, stood atop the highest tower of Castle Eldwin. His gaze, sharp and searching, swept over the horizon where the magical lights had danced just nights before. A heavy sigh escaped him, fogging the cool air as he grappled with the sudden emptiness that seemed to suck the warmth from the world. The kingdom depended on magic. It was the heartbeat of Eldara, pulsing through the land, the people, and every creature that roamed the wilds. Without it, the crops whispered fears of failing, and the trees spoke in creaks and moans of sadness. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Sir Cedric descended the spiraling staircase of the tower, his armor clinking with each step. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, but a resolute determination anchored his spirit. He would not allow despair to take root. He had sworn an oath to protect Eldara and its people, and he would uphold it, come what may. Stepping into the courtyard, he was met by the concerned faces of his fellow knights. though their numbers had dwindled with the magic that once empowered them. Sir Cedric addressed them with a voice that, despite the circumstances, carried the weight of hope. My friends, the night has taken from us more than the light. But as long as we stand together, as long as we hold true to our vows, the darkness will not prevail. I shall embark on a quest to uncover the cause of this dire affliction and restore the magic that sustains our realm. The knights, inspired by Sir Cedric's unwavering courage, rallied to his call, their spirits lifted by his resolve. They pledged their swords and their hearts to the cause, knowing the road ahead would be fraught with unknown perils. And so, with the first rays of the sun guiding him, Sir Cedric set forth from Castle Eldwin, his quest to save the magic of Eldara just beginning. As the sun climbed higher, casting a golden glow over the dew-kissed fields of Eldara, Sir Cedric rode through the villages, witnessing the despair that the absence of magic had brought upon his people. The fields lay barren, the flowers drooped sorrowfully, and a heavy silence hung over the once vibrant marketplaces. He reached the ancient sacred grove at the heart of the realm, a place where the knights of Eldara had long taken their oaths under the watchful eyes of the spirits of the land. The grove, now muted without the whisper of magic, still held a solemn dignity that resonated with the weight of history. Standing before the grand oak, a tree as old as the kingdom itself, its branches sprawling like the arms of the world, Sir Cedric dismounted. He approached with reverent steps, the leaves rustling softly as if to greet him. Placing his hand upon the gnarled bark, he felt the faint pulse of the tree, a reminder that hope was not yet lost. By the light of the Eldara sun and the depths of the Eldwin shadows, Sir Cedric began, his voice firm and clear. I reaffirm my oath to protect this realm, to uphold the good, and to pursue the restoration of our magic, no matter the darkness I must face. As his words echoed through the grove, a subtle wind picked up, swirling around him, lifting the fallen leaves in a gentle dance. It was as if the spirits of the realm bore witness to his vow, acknowledging the steadfastness of the last noble knight. Unbeknownst to Sir Cedric, his ceremony was observed from a distance. Hidden in the shadows of the grove, a sinister figure cloaked in darkness watched with a malevolent interest. Its eyes glowed faintly red, and it clutched a staff twisted like the roots of a corrupted tree. After the ceremony, Sir Cedric felt a renewed sense of purpose invigorate him. He knew his journey would be fraught with perils unknown and adversaries formidable. Yet his heart was resolute. With a final look at the grand oak, He mounted his steed and set off toward the Eldwin forest, rumored to be a nexus of ancient magic and possibly the key to understanding the plight that had befallen Eldara. As he rode, the cloaked figure in the shadows retreated deeper into the woods, its form melding with the darkness. A plan, dark and vengeful, began to take shape in its mind, centered around the knight who dared to challenge the creeping shadow over the land. The Eldwin forest, with its towering ancient trees and thick underbrush, stood as a brooding sentinel at the borders of Eldara. Its depths were rumored to be untouched by time and human presence. A sanctuary where the old magic still whispered through the leaves, and the air was heavy with the scent of moss and mystery. Sir Cedric, guided by the fading trails and his unwavering resolve, ventured into the heart of this green labyrinth. The sunlight struggled to penetrate the dense canopy, casting a perpetual twilight below that made the path ahead uncertain. As he rode deeper into the forest, a sense of unease began to stir within him. The silence of the forest was unsettling, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant call of an unseen creature. It was as if the forest itself was watching, waiting. Suddenly, a swift movement caught his eye, a shadow flitting between the trees, too quick to be natural. Sir Cedric halted his steed, drawing his sword with a practiced ease. His heart raced, not with fear, but with the adrenaline of a challenge met. "Show yourself," he called into the thick undergrowth, his voice echoing slightly in the still air. There was a moment of silence, and then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. Not the sinister presence he had expected, but a deer, its eyes wide with fear. Yet, there was something unnatural about it, a darkness in its gaze that spoke of the forest's affliction. As Sir Cedric lowered his sword, the deer bolted, disappearing into the thicket. He knew then that the forest was under the sway of the same dark force that had robbed Eldara of its magic. With renewed determination, Sir Cedric pressed on, his eyes scanning the dim paths for any sign of the malevolent force. Hours passed, and the forest seemed to grow denser, the trees older, and the air colder. It was here, in a clearing shrouded by towering oaks, that he felt it, a palpable presence, as if the air itself hummed with dark energy. Without warning, a cold gust swept through the clearing, and whispers filled the air. Voices so faint, they were almost indistinguishable from the wind. "Turn back," they hissed. "Leave this place." Sir Cedric, though shaken, steadied his voice and responded, "I will not be deterred. I am the protector of Eldara, and I will face whatever darkness seeks to consume it." As the whispers faded, a feeling of foreboding settled over the night. He knew he was being tested, that his journey through Eldwyn Forest would be fraught with more than just physical dangers. The shadows here were infused with a sinister will, seeking not just to block his path, but to invade his mind with doubt and fear. Mounting his horse once more, Sir Cedric continued deeper into the forest, the weight of his encounter lingering heavily upon him. Each step forward was a defiance, a statement of his commitment to his quest, even as the shadows watched and waited. As twilight descended upon Eldwyn Forest, casting long shadows that melded with the dark undergrowth, Sir Cedric's thoughts were heavy with the day's eerie encounters. The whispered threats, the unnatural deer, and the omnipresent gloom had tested his resolve, yet his purpose remained unshaken. Suddenly, piercing the eerie calm, a cry shattered the twilight silence. It was a desperate, soul-wrenching sob that seemed to echo through the trees, tugging at Sir Cedric's heartstrings with its urgency and fear. He urged his horse towards the sound, his armor clinking softly in the quiet of the forest. As he approached, the cries grew louder, more distinct. He dismounted and followed the sound on foot, sword drawn, eyes scanning the dimming light for signs of danger or distress. The cries led him to a small clearing, where the sight that met his eyes stirred a deep compassion in his heart. There, beneath the gnarled boughs of an ancient oak, sat a young girl. Her clothes were tattered, her feet bare and mud-stained, and she clutched at her knees, rocking back and forth. Her eyes, wide and shimmering with unshed tears, flicked up as Sir Cedric approached. They were the eyes of one who had seen too much sorrow, too young. "Do not be afraid," Sir Cedric said gently, sheathing his sword to show he meant no harm. "I am here to help you. What is your name, child?" The girl sniffled, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "Ilara," she whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. They left me, said the forest would claim me, or the shadows would, because I'm different." Sir Cedric knelt before her, his demeanor softening. "You are safe with me, Ilara. Those who left you to such a fate will answer for their cruelty. But now, tell me, why do they think you are different?" Ilara looked around nervously before meeting his gaze again. "I can see things others can't. Shadows that move and whisper. They say I'm cursed, but the shadows, they speak of truths forgotten and hidden things." Sir Cedric considered her words. Her gift, feared and misunderstood, could be the key to understanding the dark forces at play in Eldara. "Ilara, would you join me on my quest? Together, we may find answers, and perhaps a way to bring back the magic to our land. Alara's eyes widened with a mix of fear and hope. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. Her decision made in the face of a newfound protector, a noble knight who radiated the courage and kindness she had longed for. Together, they returned to where Sir Cedric's horse waited. As they rode back through the forest, Alara clinging tightly to him, Sir Cedric felt the weight of their combined destinies. Her presence reaffirmed his mission, not only to restore the magic, but to protect those harmed by ignorance and fear. As they exited the forest, the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, a reminder of the light that endures in the darkest times. Leaving the shadowed embrace of Eldwyn Forest behind, Sir Cedric and Alara traveled under the cover of starlight, their path illuminated by the gentle glow of the moon. Their destination was the humble abode of Harold, a wise old man known throughout the kingdom for his deep knowledge of ancient lore and forgotten magic. Harold's cottage, nestled at the edge of the Whispering Woods, seemed to be a part of the landscape itself, with ivy creeping up its walls and wildflowers crowding its doorstep. As Sir Cedric and Alara approached, the door creaked open, and the old man appeared, his eyes twinkling beneath bushy brows. "Ah, Sir Cedric, as the stars foretold, and who is this young companion you've brought?" Harold's voice was like gravel softened by the wind, and his gaze upon Alara was both curious and kind. "This is Alara," Sir Cedric introduced. "She has gifts that are misunderstood by many, but I believe they will be crucial in our quest to restore magic to Eldara." Harold nodded, stepping aside to welcome them into his warm, cluttered home, filled with books and various arcane artifacts. "Then it is fortunate you found her, Sir Cedric, and just in time, for the darkness grows more audacious by the night." As they settled around a sturdy wooden table, Harold lit a candle, casting flickering shadows on the walls. He explained that the vanishing of magic was tied to an ancient prophecy that spoke of a darkness that would envelop the land until the heirs of the original magical beings could unite and restore balance. The prophecy is vague, but it's clear that we cannot face this growing shadow alone, Harold stated, his eyes serious as they met Sir Cedric's. "You will need more than just wisdom and sight on your side." It was then that Sir Cedric shared his plan to enlist Tarn, a brave woodcutter known for his valor and unwavering loyalty. Tarn had lived on the outskirts of Eldwyn Forest all his life, and his intimate knowledge of the land and its creatures made him an invaluable ally. Before dawn, the trio set out to find Tarn, who lived alone in a cabin surrounded by towering pines. They found him chopping wood, his axe swinging rhythmically, each stroke echoing through the morning air. At the sight of Sir Cedric and his companions, Tarn straightened, wiping the sweat from his brow with a rough hand. Sir Cedric, Tarn greeted, a broad smile spreading across his face. "What brings you to my part of the woods?" Sir Cedric quickly explained their mission and the critical role Tarn could play. The woodcutter's face grew solemn as he listened, but when Sir Cedric finished, Tarn nodded without hesitation. "I've seen the darkness creeping at the edges of the forest," Tarn said, his voice firm. "I feared what it might mean for Eldara. You can count on my axe and my heart, Sir Cedric." With Tarn joining their ranks, the newly formed alliance felt a renewed sense of hope. Each member brought strengths that, when combined, formed a tapestry of courage, wisdom, and power. They gathered once more at Harold's cottage, planning their next steps. Harold pulled out an old, dusty map, spreading it on the table. To understand the full extent of this darkness and find a way to restore the magic, we must travel to the ancient ruins of Eldara. Deep within the heart of Eldwyn Forest, there lies the Chamber of Echoes, where the true nature of this evil might be revealed. As they studied the map and prepared for their journey, a bond formed among them, forged in the fire of impending challenges. Together, they stood as the last hope for Eldara, ready to face whatever perils awaited in their quest to bring light back to the land. As the last echoes of their plans faded into the quiet of Harold's candlelit study, the old man retrieved a heavy tome from a high shelf, dust swirling in the air with its movement. He laid the ancient book gently on the table, its cover embossed with symbols that shimmered even in the dim light. Within these pages, Harold began, his voice low and reverent, lies the prophecy of Eldara, recorded by the first seers of the realm. It speaks of a time when darkness would shroud the land and magic would falter and fade, but it also speaks of hope. The group leaned closer as Harold turned the brittle pages to a section marked by a folded corner. The script was elegant, almost flowing, filled with the language of the old magic. When the light dwindles and shadows grow bold, 4 souls shall come forth, with heart, sight, wisdom, and courage. They shall stand against the night. From their union, the darkness shall fear, and light will be born anew. This, my friends, is what has guided you to each other. Sir Cedric, Elara, and Tarn exchanged glances, each feeling the weight of destiny suddenly thrust upon them. It was one thing to join a quest, but to be part of a prophecy was something none had anticipated. Do Do you think we are these four souls the prophecy speaks of? Alara asked, her voice a mix of wonder and anxiety. It seems unlikely to be mere coincidence, Tarn added, his brow furrowed. The shadows have indeed grown bold, and we each have been drawn into this quest, guided by something beyond mere chance. Harold nodded, his eyes twinkling with a mixture of pride and seriousness. Yes, I believe so. And this prophecy does not only predict, it guides. It tells us that together you are stronger than apart. The magic that has been lost can be reclaimed, but it requires unity, trust, and the blending of your unique strengths. The revelation brought a solemn atmosphere to the room. Each member of the group felt the gravity of their roles, understanding now that their path was not just a reaction to the kingdom's plight, but a fulfillment of a deeper call. Sir Cedric stood, his posture straightening as he accepted the mantle of responsibility that came with the prophecy. Then let us not delay. We have our path, our purpose. Let us prepare and set forth at dawn. The chamber of echoes in the heart of Eldwin Forest awaits, and with it, the heart of our darkness and our hope. The meeting ended with a newfound resolve. They spent the remainder of the night preparing, each person quietly contemplating their part in the prophecy. Packs were filled, weapons were sharpened, and amulets, imbued with the last vestiges of magic Harold could muster, were distributed. As dawn painted the sky with streaks of pink and gold, the group assembled outside Harold's cottage, their faces set with determination. With a final look at the peaceful cottage, they turned their backs to the rising sun and set their sights on the dark heart of Eldwin Forest, where their true test awaited. Together, they stepped into the shadowed woods, the prophecy echoing in their minds, a beacon of light guiding them through the darkness that stretched ominously before them. Chapter 2. The Journey Through the Whispering Woods. The dawn was a quiet herald to a day fraught with promise and peril. As Sir Cedric, Alara, Harold, and Tarn entered the depths of the Whispering Woods, the air seemed to thrum with a silent energy, as if the forest itself breathed in deep, expectant breaths. The woods were aptly named. Every breeze that rustled through the leaves carried soft, indistinct whispers that seemed almost like words, just beyond the edge of understanding. It was both enchanting and unsettling, for the sounds seemed to carry messages meant to guide or mislead. As they ventured deeper, the forest canopy thickened, weaving a tapestry of green that filtered the sunlight into emerald hues. The path, barely visible under the intertwining roots and lush ferns, meandered like the course of a lazy river. Harold, leading the group with the aid of an old, gnarled staff, explained, "These woods are ancient, alive with memories and magic. Listen not just with your ears, but with your heart. The trees speak of old truths and secrets long buried." Ilara, her senses attuned to the unseen, occasionally paused, her eyes distant as she tried to decipher the elusive whispers. "They speak of caution," she relayed, a slight frown creasing her brow, "and of a presence watching us." Tarn, ever the pragmatist, kept his hand on the axe at his belt, his gaze darting to the shadows that danced just beyond sight. Whispers or no, let's keep sharp. Old magic or not, I trust my eyes and my axe. As midday approached, the whispers grew more urgent, a cacophony of soft voices that tangled in the air. Suddenly, Ilara halted, her hand raised for silence. The rest of the group stopped, watching her with bated breath. "There!" She pointed to a clearing ahead, where the sunlight pierced the canopy in golden beams. "A guardian of the forest. It speaks of a trial we must face." Approaching the clearing, they found a stone pedestal upon which lay an ancient scroll, sealed by a ribbon of vines that pulsated with a faint glow. Harold approached it, his hands trembling slightly with the weight of the moment. "This is a trial of truth," Harold intoned, reading the faded script. "To pass, one must reveal a truth about themselves that they have never spoken aloud." The task seemed simple, yet the air grew heavy with the weight of unspoken secrets. Each member of the group took their turn, standing before the pedestal. Sir Cedric confessed a fear of failing his kingdom, not due to might, but through a failure of heart. Ilara spoke of her loneliness, her fear that her visions made her unlovable. Tarn admitted his regret over a brother lost to the woods, a disappearance he blamed on his own cowardice that night. Harold, with tears in his eyes, revealed his secret practice of magic, kept hidden even when magic was feared and fading. With each confession, the vines around the scroll loosened until at last the scroll unfurled, revealing a map of the forest with a path marked in glowing script, leading deeper into its heart. With renewed resolve and a deeper bond forged by their shared vulnerabilities, the group followed the newly revealed path. The woods around them seemed to sigh in approval, the whispers now hushed, as if in respect for their truths. As they moved forward, the forest seemed less foreboding, the light more welcoming. They had passed the trial, but the journey through the whispering woods was far from over. As the group continued their journey through the whispering woods, The path revealed by the scroll led them through ever-changing landscapes, from dense underbrush to open glades where the sunlight played on the forest floor. The trials of the woods, however, were far from over, and Harold's wisdom would soon prove indispensable. It is said, Harold began in a gentle tone as they gathered around a small fire for a brief rest, that the creatures of Eldara are not merely beasts, but embodiments of the forest's soul. Each one plays a part in the health of the land and the balance of its magic. The group listened intently, the fire crackling softly in the background, casting flickering shadows that danced across their faces. "Consider the Lyran bird," Harold continued, pointing towards a high branch where a small, iridescent bird preened its shimmering feathers. "Its song has the power to heal the sick and soothe the weary heart. But if it falls silent, it is a sign that the forest itself is suffering." Elara, who had always felt a deep connection to the creatures of the woods, nodded. "I've heard them in my dreams," she whispered. "Their songs fill the night with hope. And then there are the Miro Wraiths," Harold said, his voice lowering slightly. "Elusive spirits that mirror the deepest fears of those who encounter them. They test the strength of one's heart and the purity of one's intentions." Tarn shivered slightly, despite the warmth of the fire. "Sounds like a creature I'd rather avoid," he muttered. Harold chuckled softly. "Indeed, but facing a Miro Wraith can be a transformative experience, revealing strengths you never knew you had." As dusk fell and they resumed their trek, Harold's lessons continued, each story woven with threads of ancient lore and personal insight. The knowledge he imparted was not just of magical creatures and their lore, but also of the interconnectedness of all life within Eldara. When night descended fully upon them, and the stars peeked through the canopy above, their path was suddenly blocked by a thick mist that rose from the ground like a living thing. The air grew cold, and a sense of dread filled the atmosphere. "Stay close," Sir Cedric instructed, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. As they moved cautiously forward, the mist seemed to swirl with a purpose, and from it emerged a figure, a Miro Wraith, its form shifting and changing, never quite settling into a shape that the eye could hold. Each member of the group felt their breath catch as the Wraith confronted them, its form reflecting their deepest fears. To Sir Cedric, it appeared as a monstrous version of himself, twisted by failure. To Elara, it was a vision of eternal solitude. To Tarn, a shadowy figure of his lost brother, and to Harold, it was the embodiment of his forgotten magic turning against him. "One must face it," Harold whispered, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "Show no fear. Show that you understand and accept your fears, and it will pass." Taking a deep breath, each member confronted their visions, speaking words of acceptance and understanding. As they did so, the wraith's form gradually became less defined, its presence less menacing, until it finally dissolved into the mist, which itself faded away like a bad dream. The group exhaled in unison, a sense of relief washing over them as they realized they had passed another test of the woods. The wisdom of the forest is not to defeat, but to understand, Harold said, a small smile playing on his lips as they continued on their path, now clear once again. As they walked, the bond between them deepened, forged in the fires of shared trials and shared triumphs. The whispering woods still held many secrets, but together they felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. As the canopy of the whispering woods thickened, the last rays of the sun were blotted out by the entwined branches above, casting the forest into an early twilight. The group's path, lit only by the faint glow of luminescent moss and the occasional firefly, wound deeper into the heart of the woods. The dangers of the forest at night were different from those of the day. Shadows moved with more intent, and the air carried a chill that seemed to whisper of unseen threats lurking just beyond the reach of their sight. Sir Cedric led the group, his senses heightened, sword at the ready. Behind him, Tarn carried a lantern, its light a small bubble of safety in the enveloping darkness. Alara stayed close to Harold, who murmured occasional words of ancient wisdom meant to ward off evil spirits. The relative silence of their march was suddenly broken by a rustling from the underbrush. Tarn raised the lantern, casting light towards the noise. A pair of gleaming eyes reflected back at them, and a low growl rumbled through the air. "Wolves," Tarn whispered, gripping his axe tighter. Sir Cedric stepped forward, raising his sword. "Stay behind me," he instructed firmly. "Ilara, Harold, keep to the light." The eyes blinked once, twice, and then a shadowy form stepped into the lantern's glow. It was a large wolf, its fur matted and eyes wild. But there was something unnatural about it. Its movements were too deliberate, too calculating. Harold, peering from behind Sir Cedric, whispered, "This is no ordinary beast. It's been touched by the dark magic that corrupts these woods. It might be bound to the will of whatever force seeks to hinder us." Understanding the threat, Sir Cedric lowered his stance, ready to defend. before he could move, Alara stepped forward, her voice soft but steady. "Wait," she said, extending a hand out to the creature. There is pain in its eyes. It is driven by fear, not malice. Everyone held their breath as Alara approached the wolf. The animal snarled, its instinct to attack wrestling with the confusion wrought by her presence. But slowly, under the gentle weight of her gaze, the wolf's eyes softened and its ears lowered. With a profound gentleness, Alara reached out and touched the wolf's head. The group watched in awe as a soft glow emanated from her hand, spreading over the creature. The wolf's tense muscles relaxed, and it let out a long, low sigh, as if releasing a burden it had carried for too long. The darkness was using its fear against it, Alara explained, her hand still resting on the now calm wolf. I simply reminded it of its true nature. The wolf nuzzled her hand gently before turning and disappearing back into the woods, leaving the group in silence, marveling at the unexpected resolution. That was remarkable, Alara, Sir Cedric said, sheathing his sword. You have a gift indeed, not just to see, but to heal. Harold nodded in agreement. The creatures of these woods are not our enemies. They too are victims of the shadow that falls over Eldara. With renewed determination and a deeper understanding of the challenges they faced, the group continued their journey through the night. The peril had passed, but the incident had revealed the depth of the corruption that threaded through the forest. It had also shown them that their greatest strength might not always be found in steel or magic, but in compassion and understanding. As they walked, the forest seemed to watch, less hostile now, as if acknowledging their passage and the purity of their quest. As dawn began to break, painting the sky with strokes of pink and gold, the group stumbled upon a clearing that appeared untouched by the nocturnal disturbances of the forest. Here, the grass seemed to grow greener, and the air felt lighter, a brief respite from the oppressive atmosphere of the whispering woods. It was Tarn who first noticed something peculiar about the area. Look at the ground, he said, pointing to a series of faint marks that formed a trail leading out of the clearing. These aren't natural. They're runes, old ones, etched deep into the earth. Harold knelt down beside the markings, tracing his fingers lightly over them. These runes are ancient, used by the first mages of Eldara to mark significant paths or portals. This could very well be a path used by the Phantom, or at least something closely tied to the source of the darkness. Intrigued and cautious, Sir Cedric decided to follow the rune-marked trail. If this path could lead us to the heart of the darkness, then we must take it it may be our best chance to confront the phantom and understand its intentions. With Harold leading the way, interpreting the runes that periodically marked their path, the group ventured deeper into a part of the forest that felt increasingly distorted. The trees here grew at odd angles, their branches twisted as if writhing in silent agony, and the air was tinged with a palpable sense of despair. As they progressed, Alara's sensitivity to the unseen forces around them became a guiding light. "There's a pattern to this darkness," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. "It pulses like a heartbeat, growing stronger the deeper we go." Their journey led them to a dilapidated shrine, overrun with ivy and moss, but still standing as a testament to the once sacred magic of Eldara. At the center of the shrine was a pedestal, atop which lay a fractured crystal that emitted a dull, throbbing light. "This crystal," Harold explained, his voice filled with the mixture of reverence and sorrow, was once part of a network that channeled the magical energies of the land. If it's corrupted, it might be acting as a conduit for the phantom's power. Determined to find a way to cleanse the crystal, Sir Cedric approached it. But as he did, the air around them chilled, and a shadowy figure materialized before the shrine. It was the phantom, its form more defined now, a swirling mass of darkness with eyes that glowed with malevolence. "You seek to undo what cannot be undone," the phantom hissed, its voice echoing like wind through a cavern. "This land is mine to command, as it once was before the light usurped my dominion. Not while we stand against you," Sir Cedric declared, drawing his sword. "Eldara belongs to its people, not to a shadow feeding on fear." The phantom laughed, a sound that chilled their bones. "Then come, noble knight, show me the strength of your resolve." With that, the phantom vanished, leaving behind a trail of dark mist that flowed deeper into the woods. Taking a deep breath, Sir Cedric led the group forward, following the sinister trail. "This is more than a mere confrontation," Harold murmured as they walked. "We are unraveling the very fabric of the darkness that binds this forest. Each step takes us closer to understanding and hopefully reversing the corruption." With the broken crystal as their clue and the phantom's challenge echoing in their ears, the group pressed on, their resolve hardened by the knowledge that the fate of Eldara hung delicately in the balance. The forest seemed to close in around them as they followed the trail left by the phantom. With each step, the air grew denser, a tangible pressure against their chests. It was as if the forest itself was trying to expel them, its ancient guardians wary of their mission. As they ventured deeper, navigating through thickets and over roots as old as the kingdom itself, Tarn seemed increasingly pensive, often lagging behind, his eyes scanning the gnarled branches and shadowed nooks with a mix of fear and familiarity. It was only when they reached a particularly secluded glen, where the trees arched overhead like the vaults of a cathedral, that Tarn halted, his expression clouded. "I've been here before," he said, his voice low, almost lost amid the whispering leaves. The others gathered around, sensing the importance of his words. Sir Cedric placed a reassuring hand on Tarn's shoulder. "What is it, Tarn? What do you remember?" Tarn's gaze was distant, his thoughts reaching back through years shrouded in regret. It was long ago, before the darkness seemed so bold. My brother and I, we were just lads, foolhardy and curious. We ventured deep into the forest, drawn by tales of hidden magic and ancient ruins. He paused, swallowing hard as if the memories were bitter. We found a grove, much like this one, where the trees seemed to speak. There was an energy here, a powerful magic. But we were not alone. Something else watched us, hidden in the shadows. We fled, but my brother, he didn't make it out. A heavy silence fell over the group, each processing the weight of Tarn's loss. Ilara reached out, touching Tarn's arm gently. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "but you're coming here with us. It's no coincidence. Maybe it's a chance to set things right." Tarn nodded, his resolve affirming. "Aye, that's what I've been thinking. I've kept this to myself for too long, but there's something else. Before we fled that day, we found something. An amulet buried beneath an old stone. I took it with me, not knowing what it was, only that it was important." From his bag, Tarn produced a small, wrapped object. Unfolding the cloth, he revealed an amulet made of a strange metal that shimmered with a light that seemed untouched by the surrounding gloom. The amulet was inscribed with runes, similar to those they had seen along the Phantom's trail. Harold stepped forward, his eyes wide with recognition. This is an ancient artifact, possibly a key to the old magics of Eldara. It could very well be what we need to counter the darkness. With new hope, they decided to press on, guided by Tarn's intimate knowledge of the forest and the mysterious power of the amulet. As they walked, the atmosphere seemed to change, the oppressive pressure lifting slightly, as if the forest was beginning to accept their presence. "Let's use the amulet to guide us," Sir Cedric suggested, his voice steady despite the uncertainty that lay ahead. "It might lead us to the heart of this corruption, to the very source of the phantom's power. Tarn, now at the forefront, held the amulet out before him. It pulsed softly, its light growing stronger as they moved deeper into the woods. With each step, the path became clearer, and the whispers of the forest grew louder, now urging them onward, a chorus of ancient voices guiding them towards a destiny long foretold. The ancient amulet in Tarn's hands glowed steadily as they ventured further, its light casting eerie shadows among the twisted trees. The deeper they delved into the heart of the whispering woods, the more the forest seemed to awaken, its dormant energies stirred by the presence of the old magic they carried. As the path cleared, they reached a vast thicket that circled around an ancient stone altar, overgrown with moss and vines, but still emanating a palpable power. Harold, with a solemn expression, approached the altar, his hands lightly touching the runes that adorned its surface. "This is a place of great power," Harold whispered, his voice filled with awe. "It is here that the land's bravest once came to prove their worth, to face their innermost fears in the hope of gaining wisdom and strength." Sir Cedric surveyed the clearing, feeling the weight of centuries bearing down upon them. "Then let us prove our worth, as those before us have. We each must face whatever challenge this sacred place sets before us." One by one, they approached the altar, each touched by a different trial. Alara was the first to step forward. As she neared the altar, the air around her shimmered, and she was enveloped in a vision of her village, the faces of her family twisted in fear and rejection. She heard their accusations again, felt the sting of their fear. But amidst the vision, she found a new voice within herself, a calm, soothing presence that whispered of acceptance and strength. When the vision cleared, she stood taller, her eyes clear. "I am not defined by their fears," she declared softly, her voice resolute. Tarn followed, gripping the amulet tightly. His test came in the form of a spectral image of his brother, who looked at him with sorrowful eyes, speaking of betrayal and loss. Tarn's heart ached, but he faced the apparition, speaking words of forgiveness and love. Slowly, the image of his brother smiled gently, dissipating into the wind, leaving behind a sense of closure and peace that Tarn had not felt in years. Harold approached, leaning heavily on his staff. His challenge was different. The runes on the altar glowed brightly, and he was surrounded by the spirits of past mages, questioning his worthiness. They bombarded him with doubts and fears about his hidden magic. Harold, drawing on his deep well of knowledge, answered each query with confidence. As the spirits faded, they nodded in approval, acknowledging his wisdom and courage. Lastly, Sir Cedric stepped forward. His test was a battle against a shadowy figure, a doppelganger of himself equipped with all his skills and strengths. The fight was fierce, a true test of his physical and mental prowess. With every strike and parry, Sir Cedric was forced to confront his own fears of inadequacy and failure. Finally, acknowledging these fears gave him the insight to defeat his shadowy opponent, who knelt before him and then vanished, leaving a feeling of profound understanding and acceptance. As each member of the group faced their trials, the energy around the altar changed, becoming lighter, almost celebratory. They regrouped, feeling a renewed sense of purpose and unity, their bonds strengthened by the shared experience of their deepest vulnerabilities and strengths. With the trials behind them, the path forward seemed illuminated by a new light, the light of their combined courage and newfound strengths. The forest around them responded, the oppressive darkness receding like a tide, as if acknowledging their right to pass. As they prepared to leave the clearing, the amulet pulsed again, its light brighter, guiding them towards the final leg of their journey through the whispering woods, towards the ancient ruins that awaited their arrival, with secrets of the past and hope for the future. The light of Tarn's amulet now blazed a confident path through the forest, its glow unwavering and strong. The group, emboldened by their triumphs at the ancient altar, followed the trail with a renewed sense of purpose. Their previous ordeals had not only tested their mettle, but had also deepened their understanding of the magical forces that intertwined their destinies. As they moved deeper into the heart of the whispering woods, the air thickened with a palpable tension, as if the very atmosphere anticipated the impending confrontation. The trees seemed to lean closer, their branches intertwining to form a canopy that dimmed the daylight to a twilight haze. Sir Cedric led the way, his sword sheathed, but his hand resting upon its hilt, ready to draw at the first sign of danger. Ilara walked close beside him, her senses attuned to the subtle shifts in the forest's whisperings, now more coherent, warning of the darkness that lay ahead. Harold, with his staff firmly gripped, murmured incantations under his breath, protective spells meant to shield them from lesser spirits that might seek to hinder their progress. Tarn, his expression set in a grim line, held the amulet aloft, its light a beacon cutting through the encroaching gloom. The trail led them to a clearing unlike any other they had encountered. Here, the ground was barren, the earth scorched and cracked, devoid of life. At the center stood a gnarled tree, its bark blackened and twisted, pulsing with a dark energy that seemed to suck the light from the air around it. "This is the heart of it," Harold whispered, his voice barely audible over the ominous hum that filled the air. "The source of the corruption." As they approached the tree, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble, and from the shadows at the edge of the clearing, the phantom emerged. It was more formidable than before, its form solidifying from the mist into a towering figure cloaked in darkness, its eyes burning like coals. "You have come far, noble seekers," the phantom intoned, its voice echoing like thunder. "But you tread where you are not welcome. This land is mine to command." "We will not be turned away by shadows and threats," Sir Cedric called out, drawing his sword, which gleamed with a light that rivaled the amulet's. "We come to reclaim this land for its people, to restore the balance of magic that you have perverted." The phantom laughed, a sound that chilled their bones. "Fools! The power I wield is beyond your feeble attempts at heroics. Witness now the true depth of my strength." With a wave of its shadowy arms, the phantom summoned a host of spectral creatures, shades that moved with the wind, their forms barely discernible, but their intent deadly clear. The air filled with the hiss of their approach, the ground crawling with shadows that reached for the group with tendrils of darkness. The battle was fierce. Sir Cedric and Tarn fought back to back, their blades slicing through the spectral forms, which dissipated into mist only to reform and attack anew. Ilara, focusing her energy, channeled her visions into a protective shield around Harold, who recited ancient spells that caused the ground to glow, burning some of the shades as they attempted to cross. As the fight intensified, Tarn thrust the amulet into the air, and its light exploded in a brilliant pulse that swept across the clearing, banishing the shades with its radiance. The phantom recoiled, its form flickering under the assault of the pure, magical light. Weakened, but not defeated, the phantom retreated into the shadows, its threat still lingering. "This is not the end," it hissed as it vanished. "The darkness will return." Exhausted but victorious, the group gathered their strength. They knew this battle was only a prelude to what awaited them. With the phantom momentarily at bay, they had a chance to delve deeper into the ancient ruins and uncover the secrets needed to restore the magic fully. Sir Cedric looked to his companions, their faces set with determination. "Let us press on," he said. "We have come too far to falter now." With the path clear toward the heart of the ruins, the amulet's light guiding them, ready to face whatever challenges lay in the depths. Their spirits united in their quest to heal their broken land. Chapter 3: The Awakening of the Ancients. The journey to the abyss of shadows was marked by a palpable shift in the atmosphere. The air grew colder, the light dimmer, and the path beneath their feet seemed to crunch with a sound like breaking glass. The world around them felt thinner, almost fragile, as if reality itself was warping under the influence of the dark energies emanating from the abyss. As they approached the rim of the abyss, a vast chasm that yawned open before them, the group could feel the tug of the void pulling at their souls. Here, the boundary between the physical realm and the spectral plane was blurred, creating a nexus of ancient and potent magic. "The abyss of shadows," Harold whispered, his voice tinged with awe and fear. "It is said that this place was once a sacred site used by the ancients to commune with the forces of creation and destruction alike. Now, it serves as the phantom's lair, the heart from which its darkness pulses." The edges of the chasm were marked by stones carved with runes that glowed faintly, illuminating the precipice with an eerie light. The runes were not merely dead, they served as a barrier, containing the energies within the abyss and preventing the surrounding forest. Sir Cedric stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the swirling darkness below. "This is where we must confront the phantom, where we must end its reign of shadows. For the sake of Eldara, we must restore balance." Tarn, gripping his axe, nodded solemnly. "The darkness has taken much from us. It's time we take back our land." Elara, though visibly shaken by the power emanating from the abyss, found strength in the presence of her companions. She clasped her hands together, drawing from the inner light her visions provided. "We are together in this, united by fate and by choice. We will not falter." Harold, ever the scholar, began to chant an incantation, his voice steady and clear. The runes around the chasm glimmered brighter with each word he spoke, reinforcing the barrier as they prepared to confront the phantom. As the final words of the spell echoed into the silence, a chilling wind rose from the depths of the abyss, carrying with it a low, menacing laugh. The phantom, sensing their presence, began to manifest at the edge of the darkness. "You dare to challenge me in my own domain." The phantom's voice was a blend of malice and amusement. "Here, where my power is absolute." "We do not fear you," Sir Cedric called out, drawing his sword, which shimmered with a light as pure as the darkness was corrupt. "We come to end your tyranny, to heal the wounds you've inflicted upon our land. the phantom materialized fully, its form more terrifying than before. A shifting mass of darkness with eyes like burning coals. Then come, heroes of Eldara. See if your light can outshine the darkness of the abyss. With a battle cry, Sir Cedric led the charge, his companions close behind. The fight that ensued was fierce, with every strike against the phantom seeming to tear at the very fabric of reality. The phantom fought with a ferocity born of desperation, knowing that its dominion was truly threatened. Elara, focusing her powers, directed beams of light towards the phantom, each one weakening its form. Tarn swung his axe with deadly precision, each blow backed by the force of his undying spirit. Harold, meanwhile, continued his chants, weaving protective spells around them to shield them from the phantom's dark attacks. As the battle reached its crescendo, the phantom's form began to waver, its edges fraying like a cloth burned by fire. It screamed in rage and pain, a sound that shook the very ground they stood on. With one final concerted effort, Sir Cedric plunged his sword into the heart of the phantom's shadow, and with a burst of blinding light, the shadow screamed and then imploded, the darkness sucking inward before vanishing completely. Silence fell over the abyss. The only sound, the heavy breathing of the heroes who had faced their darkest fears and emerged victorious. The air felt lighter, cleaner, as if a great weight had been lifted from the land. As they stood at the edge of the abyss, looking into the now quiet depths, they knew their journey was not yet over, but a great victory had been achieved this day. The balance was beginning to restore, and hope was returning to Eldara. After the intense battle and the defeat of the phantom, the area around the abyss of shadows seemed calmer, as though the land itself breathed a sigh of relief. However, the group knew their task was not complete. The abyss still posed a danger, a gateway that could once again be opened to darkness, if not properly sealed. Harold, carrying a satchel that clinked with the sound of stone against stone, approached the edge of the abyss. From his bag, he withdrew several ancient stones, each etched with intricate runes and glowing faintly with residual magic. These were the stones of Eldara, artifacts of great power that were said to be able to channel and harness the magical energies of the land. We must use these stones to seal the abyss, Harold explained, as he carefully placed them in a precise pattern around the rim of the chasm. These stones were once part of a larger network that balanced the magical forces of Eldara. By restoring them to their rightful place, we can close this breach and prevent any future corruption from seeping into our world. Sir Cedric and Tarn helped position the stones, following Harold's instructions. Elara, meanwhile, focused her energies, her senses extending into the flow of magic around them, guiding the placement of each stone to maximize their effect. Once the stones were set, the group joined hands, forming a circle around the abyss. Harold began to chant in the ancient tongue, a melodic and powerful incantation that seemed to resonate with the very air around them. The stones began to glow brighter, their light pulsing in time with Harold's chant. Elara felt a surge of energy flowing through them, a connection to the land and its magic that was more profound than anything she had felt before. She could sense the darkness retreating, pushed back by the light of the stones and the purity of their intent. The air around the abyss shimmered, and then the stones lifted slightly off the ground, levitating as the magic reached its peak. A beam of light shot forth from each stone, intertwining to form a brilliant lattice of energy that covered the abyss. With a final resonant note from Harold, the beams solidified, creating a seal over the chasm that glittered like a spiderweb coated in morning dew. The light from the stones faded, but their presence remained strong, a permanent barrier against the darkness. The group released hands, each member feeling a mixture of exhaustion and elation. Sir Cedric looked around at his companions, a proud smile on his face. Today, we have restored a part of what was lost. Eldara owes you all a great debt. Tarn, who had spent so many years haunted by the darkness of the woods, felt a lightness in his spirit. It's been a long journey, but worth every step if it means our home is safe. Elara, looking into the sealed abyss, felt the echoes of the visions that had once tormented her, now settling into a gentle whisper. The land is healing, she said softly, and so are we. Harold, packing away the few remaining stones, nodded in agreement. This is but the first step on the road to recovery. The magic is returning, but it will need guardians. We must ensure that what happened here is not forgotten. As they turned away from the abyss, the group felt a renewed sense of purpose. The battle may have been won, but their journey to heal Eldara was just beginning. Together, they had faced unimaginable darkness and emerged victorious, bound by a shared destiny and a common goal. They walked back through the woods, the whispering leaves now sounding like a chorus of voices singing their praises. The magic of Eldara was awakening, and with it, a new era of hope and prosperity seemed on the horizon. As the group ventured back towards the heart of the forest, A sense of unease crept upon them, a whisper of unfinished business. The sealing of the abyss had been a significant victory, yet the core of the darkness they had battled lurked still, its essence not fully vanquished. The phantom, a mere shadow of its former strength, awaited them, harboring remnants of malice and despair. Their path led them to the ancient ruins of Eldara, a place where the old magic was strongest and the veil between worlds thinnest. Here, amid stone pillars etched with forgotten lore and ground hallowed by centuries of guardianship, the final confrontation would unfold. The ruins were shrouded in a mist that swirled with whispers of ancient battles and heroes long past. As they moved through the crumbling archways, each step seemed echoed by the ghosts of history, urging them forward. "It knows we are here," Elara whispered, her voice a thread of sound in the heavy air. "It gathers its strength, drawing from the shadows that remain." Sir Cedric nodded, his hand gripping the hilt of his sword. "Then let us not delay. We end this for Eldara, and for all who have suffered under its shadow." They found the phantom at the heart of the ruins, near an old stone dais that pulsed with a faint glow. The creature was less substantial than before, its form flickering like a candle flame in the wind, yet its eyes burned with undiminished hatred and fury. "You may have sealed the abyss," it hissed, its voice a chilling scrape across their minds. "But you cannot erase the darkness that resides in the hearts of men. As long as fear and despair exist, I shall rise again. We are not here to erase darkness," Harold responded, stepping forward, his staff raised. "We are here to affirm that light will always stand against it, no matter how many times you rise." With those words, a brilliant light burst forth from Harold's staff, illuminating the ruins with the purity of ancient magic. Tarn and Sir Cedric charged forward, their weapons ready, while Elara concentrated, her hands weaving patterns in the air, drawing sigils that glowed with power. The phantom recoiled, its form beginning to unravel under the assault of light and magic. It lashed out, sending tendrils of darkness snaking towards them, trying to sow fear and discord. But the group stood united, their resolve a barrier it could not breach. With a roar of defiance, Sir Cedric struck, his sword cleaving through the phantom's shadow, each swing backed by the strength of his conviction. Tarn's axe followed, each chop a reaffirmation of their right to protect their land. Alara's sigils spun through the air, weaving a net of light that wrapped around the phantom, binding it. As the phantom weakened, its form dissipating like smoke, Harold delivered the final blow. Chanting in the ancient tongue, he directed the light from his staff into the heart of the shadow. With a scream that echoed through the ruins, the phantom exploded into a cloud of darkness that quickly faded into nothingness. The group stood in silence, the only sound the rustling of leaves in a gentle breeze that seemed to cleanse the air, sweeping away the last vestiges of malice. "We have done it," Sir Cedric said, sheathing his sword. "The phantom is no more." Harold nodded, a tired smile on his lips. "Yes, but we have also done more than that. We've restored the balance of magic in Eldara. It will take time for the land to heal fully, but the darkness will no longer feed on it." Elara looked around at the ruins, now peaceful and silent. "And we will be here to guard it, to ensure that the light continues to thrive." Together, they left the ruins, the weight of their trials lifted, walking back into a world that was ready to heal. The battle was over, but their journey continued. Guardians of a magic reborn, custodians of a light that would endure after the defeat of the phantom, the group made their way back through the forest, now strangely serene in the aftermath of their victory. The once ominous and whispering trees now seemed to hum gently with a newfound vitality, as if acknowledging the return of balance. As they approached the heart of Eldara, where the great hall of echo stood, they could feel the pulse of the land stronger than ever, a rhythm of life and magic flowing through the veins of the earth. The Hall of Echoes, a place of ancient power and meeting, where the first guardians of Eldara had convened, awaited their return. "The magic needs to be anchored," Harold explained, as they stood before the massive doors of the hall, adorned with symbols of the old kings and queens of Eldara. "It's not enough to defeat the darkness. We must ensure the light is nurtured and protected." Inside the hall, at its very center, stood the Crystal of Ether, a legendary artifact that had regulated the magical forces of Eldara, but it dimmed and fractured during the reign of the Phantom. Now, it was time to restore it to its former glory. Elara stepped forward, her connection to the land deeper now than ever. She placed her hands on the crystal, feeling its cool surface and the faint pulse of its dormant power. Closing her eyes, she channeled her visions into the heart of the crystal, her spirit dancing with the threads of light that wove through the air. Tarn and Sir Cedric stood guard, their eyes scanning the vast hall, while Harold began the incantations needed to bind the magic permanently to the crystal. His voice echoed, a deep and powerful sound that filled the space with energy. The crystal began to glow, softly at first, then brighter, as if catching fire from within. The fractures that had marred its surface started to mend, the pieces knitting together in a spectacle of light and shadow. The hall itself seemed to breathe in unison with their efforts, the walls resonating with a warm hum. As Alara's power met with the ancient magic of the crystal, a shock wave of energy burst forth, washing over them in waves of warmth and light. The feeling was exhilarating, like the dawn of a new day breaking over the horizon. When the light finally settled, the crystal stood whole and vibrant, its light steady and strong. The hall was filled with a golden glow, casting long shadows that danced playfully around them. "We have done it," Alara breathed out, her voice a mixture of awe and exhaustion. "The magic is restored." "Not just restored," Harold added, looking around at the transformed hall, "but strengthened. Eldara will bloom like never before, and its people will know peace and prosperity." Sir Cedric, feeling the weight of his responsibilities lighten, placed his hand on Alara's shoulder. "Thanks to you, to all of you, we've not only saved our land, but set a new course for its future. As its guardians, we must ensure this peace lasts." Tarn, who had been silent, his emotions clear on his face, nodded in agreement. "It's a new beginning for all of us, for my brother, for the spirits of the forest, for every soul in Eldara." As they left the Hall of Echoes, stepping back into the daylight that now shone over Eldara, they could see the effects of their work. The trees were greener, the waters clearer, and the air filled with the sounds of birds singing, as if in celebration. Their journey had changed them, each finding new strength and purpose. Together, they had faced darkness and prevailed, not just for themselves, but for all of Eldara. They were more than heroes. They were guardians of the light, bearers of hope for generations to come. As the group made their way back to the central village of Eldara, the changes in the landscape were palpable. The vibrant hues of the flowers seemed to sing with color. The trees stood taller, and even the wind carried a fresh, sweet scent that spoke of renewal and life. The villagers, sensing the shift, began to gather in the town square, their faces etched with a mix of curiosity and hope. Sir Cedric, leading the group, felt a swell of pride for the land he had sworn to protect. As they entered the square, the people of Eldara broke into cheers, their voices rising in a crescendo of joy and relief. Children ran alongside them, laughter pealing like bells through the air, while the elders watched with tearful eyes, grateful for the return of their guardians and the magic that sustained their world. At the center of the square stood the great oak, a tree as old as the kingdom itself, under which leaders had been crowned and fates decided. Here, Sir Cedric addressed the gathering, his voice strong and clear. "People of Eldara," he began, "we have journeyed through darkness to bring back the light that is the lifeblood of our land. The phantom that plagued our realm is no more. Its shadows dispersed by the courage and unity of those who stood beside me." He gestured to Alara, Tarn, and Harold, who stood nearby, their faces humble yet proud. Alara, stepping forward, shared her visions of a flourishing Eldara, her words weaving images of verdant fields and clear skies, of children playing in safety, and elders resting in peace. The magic is restored, not just in the land, but in our hearts. Let us nurture it, cherish it, and let it guide us to a future bright with promise. Tarn, with his usual straightforwardness, added, "The woods are safe once more. The creatures within them, allies once again. We must live in harmony with them, as we once did, respecting the gifts they offer." Harold, ever the wise one, spoke of vigilance. "Magic has returned, but we must remember the lessons of the past. We stand as guardians, all of us, to ensure that darkness does not take root again. Let this be a new era of enlightenment and guardianship for Eldara." The villagers listened, moved by the words of their heroes, their spirits lifted by the tangible signs of the magic's return. The gathering turned into a celebration, the first of many to come, with music and dancing that lasted until the stars blanketed the sky. In the days that followed, Sir Cedric, Alara, Tarn, and Harold took up roles as leaders and protectors of the realm. Sir Cedric oversaw the training of new knights, dedicated not just to the defense of the kingdom, but to the preservation of its magic and lore. Alara worked closely with the village seers, helping to interpret visions and guide the people in spiritual and magical matters. Tarn returned to the woods, but not as a solitary woodcutter. He became a warden of the forest, teaching the younger generations the secrets of the trees and the creatures that dwelled within. Harold, with his vast knowledge, established a school of magic and wisdom where the mystical arts could be studied and preserved. Together, they watched Eldara thrive, its people embracing the magic that flowed through the land like lifeblood. They stood as beacons of hope, the guardians of light, their legacy woven into the very fabric of Eldara's history. As the years passed, the tales of their courage and unity became legends, told and retold around fires and at the bedsides of wide-eyed children. Eldara prospered, a testament to the enduring power of light over darkness. and the unyielding spirit of those who stand in its defense.